Hey guys, it's your friend Jesse from Print and Play, and today I'm here in Lake Tahoe, Nevada for the inaugural Grand Slam of curling in the United States. But that's not important. What is important is that today I'm going to tell you about the invention that I came up with that has opened up all sorts of doors and opportunities for my business. Today I'm going to tell you about how this 3D printed item has fixed the Olympic sport of curling.
printandplay.ca.
What if one of the oldest team sports in the world was being changed? Not by athletes, but by a 3D printer. This is the story of how a century-old copper tool used in curling got re-engineered, and how that turned into one of the most advanced and successful 3D printed products I've ever made. Before we get off to the races here, I just want to extend a huge thank you to our supporters on Patreon. Patrons get early access, behind-the-scenes treatment, discounts on products and services, and so much more. Support our endeavors and join their ranks today at patreon.com/printandplaycreations. Thank you, and on with the show. If you've been following me for a bit, you might remember from my first video that I have this weird storied history with the sport of curling. I've never actually played the game, but I've worked in it for over 13 years on the media side, directing more than 50 team features, 2 full documentaries, and even coaching a brother-sister mixed doubles team to the 2018 Olympics. So yeah, you could say I know the industry pretty well, and that's exactly why I'm comfortable talking about this product, because I've already saturated the market and built a distribution network from top to bottom. But more importantly, this isn't a story just about curling. It's about finding solutions in places that you wouldn't think, and how additive manufacturing, or 3D printing, is no longer just for prototypes. It's a legitimate way to produce real, commercial products. Chapter 1, The Problem. Almost a decade ago, a few ice makers, the people who literally make the curling ice, came to me and asked a question. Could these copper tools be 3D printed? Now, if you've been around 3D printing that long, you know how far things have come. Back then, the printers were slower, weaker, and a lot more experimental. But still, I thought, sure, how hard could it be? It's just a bulb with holes that spray water, like a fancy watering can, right? Turns out, not even close. Chapter 2. History and context. Let's back up for a second. Curling is often called the oldest team sport in the world. It started on frozen lakes in Scotland sometime before 1511. Just people hucking chunks of granite across the ice toward a target. Fast forward a few centuries and it moved indoors. Artificial ice, controlled conditions, and instead of sweeping snow away, ice makers began creating texture by spraying tiny droplets of hot water that freeze into little bumps called pebble. Those pebbles are what make curling work. They lift the rock off the surface just enough that air gets underneath, reducing friction and letting the rock glide and curl across the ice. The tool that creates those droplets is called a pebble head. Traditionally, it's made from a single sheet of copper, less than a millimeter thick, pressed into shape by hand and soldered together. Each one has between 54 and 64 tiny holes, some as small as half a millimeter. And every hole has to be perfect. The angle, the diameter, the spacing, everything determines how the droplets hit the ice. So when someone asked me to create one with a 3D printer, I knew it was going to be a challenge.
In the past, we've had troubles with the copperheads, which are handmade. What we find with these, they're all exactly the same. So when we get one out of the box, water is even all over the ice. We've had copperheads not even because the holes aren't the same angles. Or someone drops in the middle of an event and you don't have a spare one. These ones don't seem to bend or break, so that's why these seem to be more consistent. The weight, that's a big thing. It's like you're using nothing and it's easy motion, which actually in the end helps have a consistent pebble, so you're not getting tired. I really love the light pebble heads.
The main problem with them is that copper can bend, and once the dome is bent, the holes point in all sorts of different directions, so it's not consistent anymore. Also, ice makers think that it's too heavy, so when they use it all week, their wrist hurts. Make it more durable, make it weigh less. Chapter 3. Experimentation. The first prototype we printed shattered instantly. The head ice maker dropped it, stepped on it, and it exploded into plastic confetti. Lesson 1. It has to be tough. The second prototype held together, but it sprayed water about 5 times too fast, even though it was an exact 1-to-1 copy of the copper version. Lesson 2. Flow rate matters. And then came the deeper challenges. It needs to survive 70 degrees Celsius water. It needs to have holes that stay perfectly round and never clog. And it can't leak, not even a drop. because even one misplaced droplet on a curling sheet is a big deal. We tried everything: PLA, PETG, ABS, even resin. PLA warped from the heat, resin cracked over time from prolonged exposure to hot water, PETG absorbed water, and ABS was strong but tough to print. And the biggest problem? Wall thickness. A copper head has paper-thin walls, and FDM printers struggle to make something that's thin and watertight. So we had to redesign from the inside out. We added internal supports that doubled as flow regulators, fine-tuning the internal geometry until the water output matched the original copper version, down to the milliliter. To fix the hole issue, we printed tiny pilot holes and drilled each one by hand with precision bits. It sounds tedious, but it guaranteed perfect flow and alignment, and honestly, it became part of the quality control process. Still, the real breakthrough came from something called dichtol, an incredibly fine biopolymer from Germany. It seeps into microscopic gaps and bonds the whole surface from the inside out, making the print waterproof and tougher than before. It's expensive and a pain to get in North America, but it works. And I'm in no way sponsored by this. I asked them if they'd love to sponsor a video of mine. They didn't want to, so whatever. It's still great. By the time we finished testing, the new 3D printed heads were basically indestructible. I could throw one at a wall, drive over it with my car, no problem. Chapter 4, Results and Value. So here's where we ended up. A tool that's a third the weight of copper, strong enough to handle real-world abuse, chemical and heat resistant, and completely consistent every single time. Even better, every size is color-coded, so ice makers can tell them apart instantly. When I showed these to the head ice maker for the World Curling Federation, he said, "Why would you make it cheaper? It's better than the original. Charge more." That's when I realized that this wasn't a copy, it was an upgrade. Each one cost me about $5 to $10 to produce, depending on labor and materials. They sell for $85, still cheaper than copper, but engineered to perform better. And they're made entirely in Canada, from start to finish, at the Print and Play retail location in Hamilton. You can check them out at pebbleheads.com. This isn't just a curling story, it's a manufacturing story. A story about how 3D printing can take a century-old process, solve the problems no one else bothered to look at, and make something better. So the next time someone says 3D printing is just for hobbyists, tell them, it changed the sport of curling. Thanks for watching. If you like seeing real engineering stories like this where innovation meets tradition, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, keep making things work.